There are two sides of this story. There's the official story and a much darker one told by the McDonald brothers. You see, by improving on the speedy service system without their written permission, Ray had violated his contract with the brothers more times than he cared count, and this meant they could technically sue him at any time. They were always unpredictable when it came to legal matters, and so Ray decided to act before they had the chance to ruin his plans. He called them up and declared that he wanted to buy them out of McDonald's completely. Ray told them to name their price and call him when they knew. A few days later, the phone rang. But when Ray heard the number, his jaw dropped before. $2.7 million. That gives $1 million for me, $1 million for Mac, and $700,000 for Uncle Sam. Ray thought about it for a while. This was everything he wanted. He'd get the McDonald's name, the original store in San Bernardino, and the rights to everything McDonald's related, so he'd be fully in charge. But he had no idea where to get $2.7 million. Sure, things had been going well for Ray with this new real estate strategy, but $2.7 million in 1960 is roughly the equivalent of $28 million today. Even for an up-and-coming business, that's a lot of money. But Ray knew this was his chance, so he agreed to the deal. Thankfully, Harry had some powerful contracts on Wall Street, so Ray was able to borrow the cash. It meant taking on a lot of debt, but Ray was so confident in the future of McDonald's. He felt certain he'd make it back. However, the brothers suddenly decided that they didn't want to give up their own McDonald's store, but they still insisted Ray pay the same price. Ray was furious, and it looked like the whole deal may fall apart. But eventually, it was agreed that the brothers would keep their store as long as they renamed their restaurant to Big M, so it was technically not associated with the McDonald's brand. By now, Ray hated the brothers with a passion, but at least it seemed the deal was done. But here is where the story splits in two parts. The official story is that the deal went well, were soon showing off their $1 million check to their friends and family. However, Richard McDonald tells a different story. According to him, a key part of the deal was that the brothers wanted to keep the 0.5% royalty they'd received all this time. But Ray claimed that if this was written into the contract, insurance companies would charge him too much. So Ray supposedly agreed to pay the royalty out of his own income, but that the deal would have to be done on a handshake basis rather than being official. The brothers were nervous to take Ray at his word, but they reluctantly agreed, trusting that he wouldn't screw them over. But Richard McDonald claims that when it came time for Ray to pay up the royalties the brothers were owed, he refused, never paying them a single penny. Given how successful McDonald's went on to become, that 0.5 of all revenue would have been worth billions of dollars. However, since the agreement wasn't on paper, there was nothing the brothers could do. They could never prove that the deal ever happened this way. Now, it's entirely possible that Ray did make his handshake deal and then just completely backstabbed them, knowing they could never prove it. But many who have looked onto the story of McDonald's believe that Richard's story is nothing but a myth. Either way, a few things are certain. 7 years of arguing with the McDonald brothers had cemented Ray's hatred for them, and he definitely did want revenge. As soon as Richard and Mac signed the piece of paper to transfer all ownership of McDonald's to Ray, he told one of his employees, "I'm normally not a vindictive man, but this time I'm gonna get those tons of bitches." Ray's first order of business after negotiating the buyout was to open a McDonald's store a block away from the store owned by the brothers, which they had to rename to the Big M. Ray's intention for opening that store was purely to run them out of business. It was cruel. They weren't doing any harm by keeping their single store as a passion project, but it worked. The Big M could building complete with the McDonald's right next to it. And so, the brothers' dream of wanting to keep their store was shattered. Ray also went about rewriting history. By this point, Ray and Harry had consolidated McDonald's System Incorporated and Franchise Realty Corporation into a single entity, the McDonald's Corporation. Ray called himself the founder of McDonald's and advertised his first franchise in Illinois as McDonald's No. 1. Essentially erasing the McDonald's brothers and the original store from the company's history. With the brothers out of the way, Ray then got the call he'd been waiting for. It was Joanne, the woman he'd left his wife for. But she didn't excited. Joanne said her mother was disappointed that she was even considering leaving her husband, and Joanne's daughter told her that if she got divorced, she could forget that she even had a daughter. As a result, Joanne told Ray she couldn't marry him. Ray put the phone down and sat in silence, staring blankly at the floor. He'd finally got the McDonald's business to himself, but the love of his life has now gone. At that moment, Ray decided it was time to throw himself into the business even more, which meant things were about to get crazy. Don't forget to give me a quick little follow for more trivia and stories on the big brands that you know and love.